Okay, we are in the middle of chapter 2 and we will continue. About a minute later, however, he broke into a gallop again, and no wonder, for the roar broke out again, this time on their left from the direction of the forest. "Two of them!" moaned Bree. When they had galloped for several minutes without any further noise from the lions, Shasta said, "I say, that other horse is galloping beside us now, only a stone's throw away." "All the better," panted Bree. "Tarkin on it. We'll have a sword. Protect us all." "But Bree," said Shasta, "we might just as well be killed by lions as caught, or I might. They'll hang me for horse stealing." He was feeling less frightened of lions than Bree, because he had never met a lion. Bree had. Bree only snorted in answer, but he did sheer away to his right. Oddly enough, the other horse seemed also to be sheering away to the left, so that in a few seconds the space between them had widened a good deal. But as soon as it did so, there came two more lions' roars immediately after one another, one on the right and the other on the left, and the horses began drawing nearer together. So apparently did the lions. The roaring of the brutes on each side was horribly close, and they seemed to be keeping up with the galloping horses quite easily. Then the cloud rolled away. The moonlight, astonishingly bright, showed up everything almost as if it were broad day. The two horses and two riders were galloping almost neck to neck and knee to knee, just as if they were in a race. Indeed, Bree said afterwards that a finer race had never been seen in Kellerman. Shasta now gave himself up for lost and began to wonder whether lions killed you quickly or played with you as a cat plays with a mouse, and how much it would hurt. At the same time, one sometimes does this at the most frightful moments, he noticed everything. He saw that the other rider was a very small, slender person, mail-clad, the moon shone on the mail, and riding magnificently. He had no beard. Something flat and shining was spread out before them. Before Shasta had time even to guess what it was, there was a great splash, and he found his mouth half full of salt water. The shining thing had been a long inlet of the sea. Both horses were swimming, and the water was up to Shasta's knees. There was an angry roaring behind them, and looking back, Shasta saw a great shaggy and terrible shape crouched on the water's edge, but only one. "We must have shaken off the other lion," he thought. The lion apparently did not think its prey worth a wetting. At any rate, it made no attempt to take to the water in pursuit. The two horses, side by side, were now well out into the middle of the creek, and the opposite shore could be clearly seen. The Tarkan had not yet spoken a word. "But he will," thought Shasta, "as soon as we have landed. What am I to say? I must begin thinking out a story." Then suddenly two voices spoke at his side. "Oh, I am so tired," said the one. "Hold your tongue, Hewan, and don't be a fool," said the other. "I'm dreaming," thought Shasta. "I could have sworn that other horse spoke." Soon the horses were no longer swimming, but walking, and soon with a great sound of water running off their sides and tails, and with a great crunching of pebbles under 8 hoofs, they came out on the farther beach of the inlet. The Tarkan, to Shasta's surprise, showed no wish to ask questions. He did not even look at Shasta, but seemed anxious to urge his horse straight on. Bree, however, at once shouldered himself in the other horse's way. "Brouhaha," he said. "Steady there. I heard you, I did. There's no good pretending, ma'am. I heard you. You're a talking horse, a Narnian horse, just like me." "What's it got to do with you if she is?" said the strange rider fiercely, laying hand on sword hilt. But the voice in which the words were spoken had already told Shasta something. "Why, it's only a girl!" he exclaimed. "And what business of yours is it if I am only a girl?" snapped the stranger. "You're only a boy, a rude, common little boy, a slave probably, who's stolen his master's horse." "That's all you know," said Shasta. "He's not a thief, little Tarkina," said Bree. "At least, if there's been any stealing, you might just as well say I stole him. And as for its not being my business, you wouldn't expect me to pass a lady of my own race in this strange country without speaking to her. It's only natural I should." "I think it's very natural, too," said the mayor. "I wish you'd held your tongue, Hewan," said the girl. "Look at the trouble you've got us into." "I don't know about trouble," said Shasta. "You can clear off as soon as you like. We shan't keep you." "No, we shan't," said the girl. "What quarrelsome creatures these humans are," said Bree to the mayor. "They're as bad as mules. Let's try to talk a little sense. I take it, ma'am, your story is the same as mine, captured in early youth, years of slavery among the Kellermans." "Too true, sir," said the mayor with a melancholy whinny. "And now, perhaps, escape?" "Tell him to mind his own business, Hewan," said the girl. "No, I won't, Aravis," said the mayor, putting her ears back. This is my escape just as much as yours, and I'm sure a noble war horse like this is not going to betray us. We are trying to escape, to get to Narnia." "And so, of course, are we," said Bree. "Of course you guessed that at once. A little boy in rags riding or trying to ride a war horse at the dead of night couldn't mean anything but an escape of some sort. And if I may say so, a high-born Tarkina riding alone at night, dressed up in her brother's armor and very anxious for everyone to mind their own business and ask her no questions. Well, if that's not fishy, call me a cob." "Why, all right then," said Aravis. "You've guessed it. Hewen and I are running away. We are trying to get to Narnia. And now, what about it?" "Well, in that case, what is to prevent us all going together?" said Bree. "I trust, Madam Hewen, you will accept such assistance and protection as I may be able to give you on the journey." "Why do you keep talking to my horse instead of to me?" asked the girl. "Excuse me, Tarkina," said Bree, with just the slightest backward tilt of his ears, "but that's collarman talk. We're free Narnians, Hewen and I suppose if you're running away to Narnia, you want to be one too. In that case, Hewen isn't your horse any longer. One might just as well say you're her human." The girl opened her mouth to speak and then stopped. Obviously, she had not quite seen it in that light before. "Still," she said after a moment's pause, "I don't know that there's so much point in us all going together. Aren't we more likely to be noticed?" "Less," said Bree, and the mare said, "Oh, do let's. I should feel much more comfortable. We're not even certain of the way. I'm sure a great charger like this knows far more than we do." "Oh, come on, Bree," said Shasta. "Let them go on their own. Can't you see they don't want us?" "We do," said Hewen. "Look here," said the girl. "I don't mind going with you, Mr. Warhorse, but what about this boy? How do I know he's not a spy?" "Why don't you say at once that you think I'm not good enough for you?" said Shasta. "Be quiet, Shasta," said Bree. "The Tarkina's question is quite reasonable. I'll vouch for the boy Tarkina. He's been true to me and a good friend, and he's certainly either a Narnian or an Archenlander." "All right, then, let's go together." But she didn't say anything to Shasta, and it was obvious that she wanted Bree, not him. "Splendid," said Bree. "And now that we've got the water between us and those dreadful animals, what about you two humans taking off our saddles and are all having a rest and hearing one another's stories?" Both the children unsaddled their horses, and the horses had a little grass, and Aravis produced rather nice things to eat from her saddlebag, but Shasta sulked and said no thanks and that he wasn't hungry. And he tried to put on what he thought very grand and stiff manners, but as a fisherman's hut is not usually a good place for learning grand manners, the result was dreadful. And he half knew that it wasn't a success, and then became sulkier and more awkward than ever. Meanwhile, the two horses were getting on splendidly. They remembered the very same places in Narnia, the grasslands up above Beaver's Dam, and found that they were some sort of second cousins once removed. This made things more and more uncomfortable for the humans, until at last Bree said, "And now, Tarkina, tell us your story, and don't hurry it. I'm feeling comfortable now." Aravis immediately began, sitting quite still and using a rather different tone and style from her usual tone. For in Calormen, storytelling, whether the stories are true or made up, is a thing you're taught, just as English boys and girls are taught essay writing. The difference is that people want to hear the stories, whereas I never heard of anyone who wanted to read an essay. Chapter 3. At the Gates of Tajban. "My name," said the girl at once, "is Aravis Tarkina, and I am the only son of Kidrash Tarkan, the son of Rishti Tarkan, the son of Kidrash Tarkan, the son of Ilsombre Tisroc, the son of Ardib Tisroc, who was descended in a right line from the god Tash. My father is the lord of the province of Calavar, and is the one who has the right of standing on his feet in his shoes before the face of Tisroc himself, may he live forever. My mother, on whom be the peace of the gods, is dead, and my father has married another wife. One of my brothers has fallen in battle against the rebels in the far west, and the other is a child. Now it came to pass that my father's wife, my stepmother, hated me, and the sun appeared dark in her eyes as long as I lived in my father's house. And so she persuaded my father to promise me in marriage to Ahoshta Tarkan. Now this Ahoshta is of base birth, though in these latter years he has won the favor of the Tisroc, may he live forever, by flattery and evil counsels, and is now made a Tarkan and the lord of many cities, and is likely to be chosen as the Grand Vizier when the present Grand Vizier dies. Moreover, he is at least 60 years old, and has a hump on his back, and his face resembles that of an ape. Nevertheless, my father, because of the wealth and power of this Ahoshta, and being persuaded by his wife, sent messengers offering me in marriage, and the offer was favorably accepted, and Nehushta sent word that he would marry me this very year at the time of high summer. When this news was brought to me, the sun appeared dark in my eyes, and I laid myself on my bed and wept for a day. But on the second day I rose up and washed my face, and caused my mare Hewen to be saddled, and took with me a sharp dagger which my brother had carried in the western wars, and rode out alone. And when my father's house was out of sight, and I was come to a green open place in a certain wood, where there were no dwellings of men, I dismounted from Hewen my mare, and took out the dagger. Then I parted my clothes where I thought the readiest way lay to my heart, and I prayed to all the gods that as soon as I was dead I might find myself with my brother. After that I shut my eyes and my teeth, and prepared to drive the dagger into my heart. But before I had done so, this mare spoke with the voice of one of the daughters of men, and said, "O my mistress, do not by any means destroy yourself, for if you live, you may yet have good fortune, but all the dead are dead alike." "I didn't say it half so well as that," muttered the mare. "Hush, ma'am, hush," said Bree, who was thoroughly enjoying the story. "She's telling it in the grand Collarman manner, and no storyteller in a Tisrock's court could do it better. Pray go on, Tarkina." "When I heard the language of men uttered by my mare," continued Erebus, "I said to myself, the fear of death has disordered my reason and subjected me to delusions, and I became full of shame, for none of my lineage ought to fear death more than the biting of a gnat. Therefore I addressed myself a second time to the stabbing, but Hewen came near to me, and put her head in between me and the dagger, and discoursed to me most excellent reasons, and rebuked me as a mother rebukes her daughter. And now my wonder was so great that I forgot about killing myself, and about Nehushta, and said, 'O my mare, how have you learned to speak like one of the daughters of men?' And Hewen told me, what is known to all this company, that in Narnia there are beasts that talk, and how she herself was stolen from thence when she was a little foal. She told me also of the woods and waters of Narnia, and the castles and the great ships, till I said, 'In the name of Tash and Azeroth and Zardina, Lady of the Night, I have a great wish to be in that country of Narnia.' 'O my mistress,' answered the mare, 'if you were in Narnia you would be happy, for in that land no maiden is forced to marry against her will.' And when we had talked together for a great time, hope returned to me, and I rejoiced that I had not killed myself. Moreover, it was agreed between Hewen and me that we should steal ourselves away together, and we planned it in this fashion. We returned to my father's house, and I put on my gayest clothes and sang and danced before my father, and pretended to be delighted with the marriage which he had prepared for me. Also I said to him, 'O my father, and O the delight of my eyes, give me your license and permission to go with one of my maidens alone for 3 days into the woods to do secret sacrifices to Zardina, Lady of the Night, and of maidens, as is proper and customary for damsels, when they must bid farewell to the service of Zardina and prepare themselves for marriage.' And he answered, 'O my daughter, and O the delight of my eyes, so shall it be.' But when I came out from the presence of my father, I went immediately to the oldest of his slaves, his secretary, who had dandled me on his knees when I was a baby, and loved me more than the air and the light. And I swore him to be secret, and begged him to write a certain letter for me. And he wept and implored me to change my resolution, but in the end he said, 'To hear is to obey,' and did all my will. And I sealed the letter and hid it in my bosom." "But what was in the letter?" asked Shasta. "Be quiet, youngster," said Bree. "You're spoiling the story. She'll tell us all about the letter in the right place. Go on, Tarkina." "Then I called the maid who was to go with me to the woods and perform the rites of Zardina, and told her to wake me very early in the morning. And I became merry with her and gave her wine to drink, but I had mixed such things in her cup that I knew she must sleep for a night and a day. As soon as the household of my father had committed themselves to sleep, I arose, and put on an armor of my brother's which I always kept in my chamber in his memory. I put into my girdle all the money I had and certain choice jewels, and provided myself also with food, and saddled the mare with my own hands, and rode away in the second watch of the night. I directed my course not to the woods where my father supposed I would go, but north and east to Tashban.